up to the wrongs committed during that period. We're asking, is there a more harmonious time ahead? Where a debate special in around 10 minutes' time. First,
conversar, frambuesa, obtener, tarde-noche,
Russia fired missiles at an airport near to
conducir,
Lviv, of course, the western Ukrainian city.
niña,
Thousands have found refuge from the Russian invasion. This move is seen as a desperate attempt by Moscow to regain.
gemelos,
Western intelligence has revealed that the Russian
padre,
stalled on all fronts. Ukraine's forces
sandía,
and military aid have provided far more resistance
melocotón,
than predicted. Hitting Lviv is a major move
hermano,
that once more raises the tension with the West, while
montar,
into a hub for refugees. Friday morning, an aircraft repair factory was hit. The site has been closed for several days, its destruction causing no casualties. Still, Ukraine's regional governor says targeting.
Це удар по місту Львову. По гуманітарному хабу, в якому як мінімум зараз знаходиться 200 тисяч переселенців, які вже один раз йшли від військових дій. І удар ворога по місту Львову – це ще раз підтвердження того, що вони не воюють з українським містом. Воюють з населенням, з дітьми, з жінками, з переселенцями.
According to Governor Kazitsky, the missiles were launched from the Black Sea. He says the Ukrainian government shot some of them down, the remaining 4 hitting the aircraft repair plant. This is the second time the northwestern Lviv region has been bombed, with military sites previously targeted. Around 30 people were killed in the last attack. They no longer feel safe.
Це були найсильніші вибухи, які я почув з початку війни.
Ну, так, собственно, ми з Києва вдали і за цього приїхали, а тут почали бабахкати. Ну, тут кажуть,
melocotón,
тривоги там ночі, ви знаєте, тут діли.
Close to the Polish border, much of the West's military and humanitarian aid enters Ukraine through
manzana,
the city sits on NATO's doorstep. If attacks here intensify, it could heighten international repercussions.
kiwi,
Ukraine's human rights ombudswoman said this Friday 130 people had been rescued
uva,
from the bombed theatre in Mariupol. But Ludmila Denisova says there was still no information on more than 1,000 others that officials believe have been sheltering there when the bomb fell. Ukraine's president
frambuesa,
has accused the Russians of deliberately targeting the Mariupol theatre.
After a Russian strike left
cereza,
ruins, the painstaking search for survivors buried beneath the rubble continues. Ukrainian authorities say 130 people have escaped, but Russia's continued assault has complicated rescue efforts.
naranja,
Unfortunately, they didn't stop the shellings around the area for a longer period of time, so the rescue team could not even at the beginning approach the building. So currently the rescue teams are still doing their job, but unfortunately several hundreds of people may be still there and trapped.
Hundreds of people had been using the basement of the theatre as a bomb shelter. These
toronja,
showed that white letters that spelled out children in Russian had been painted on the ground around the building to alert warplanes of those inside, but to no avail. Russia's ambassador to the UN has denied any involvement.
The theater in Mariupol was not bombed by Russia.
Fighting in the
ciruela,
Mariupol has claimed more than 2,000 lives so far. The mayor says 80 to 90% of the city has been destroyed by the shelling. For residents, the situation remains critical.
sandía,
We have nothing to eat. It's horrible. We have no electricity, no heat, nothing.
30,000 residents have managed to flee Mariupol
fresa,
in corridors, but this is just the tip of the iceberg. 350,000 people are still waiting to leave.
The French President Emmanuel Macron this Friday told his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin that he's extremely concerned about the situation in Mariupol, which of course has been hit, as we've been reporting, by constant shelling. Macron has been trying to maintain
plátano,
Putin is accusing The Ukrainians, on the other hand, of war crimes. This puts France, this contact that Macron's been maintaining, in a possible role should peace talks advance. Meanwhile, Russian negotiators have been saying that both Moscow and Kyiv were halfway there on the issue of Ukraine's demilitarization and giving up on joining NATO. This coming from Russia's negotiator, Vladimir Medinsky. Nobody from the Ukraine side has confirmed this version. His leader told his American counterpart that war in Ukraine is something he doesn't want to see. Xi Jinping spoke with Joe Biden earlier Friday. The Chinese premier said he shouldn't get involved in supporting Moscow's illegal invasion of Ukraine. Well, China had already signed an energy agreement with Russia, a 30-year contract in Ukraine. Now, this isn't the first time that Russia's alleged that the US is funding military biological activities in Ukrainian labs. Our correspondent in New York, Jessica Missouri, has more on this.
Well, there was a similar meeting to this one exactly a week ago. We heard yet again from the UN's head of disarmament that the United Nations has no information, that it is not aware at all of any biological weapons facilities in Ukraine. But Russia's ambassador, Vasily Nebenzia, said otherwise. He focused very carefully on his paper as he read out a whole list of Russian claims regarding the Pentagon funding these alleged weapons facilities, biological weapons facilities, laboratories in Ukraine. He spoke about trafficking in Ukrainian blood serum, developing programs to use mosquitoes to spread disease and birds as well. And then went on to just completely rubbish those claims made by Russia, saying that Russia is using the Security Council to spread propaganda and disinformation. The US Ambassador Linda Thomas-Greenfield said that it was a tirade of bizarre conspiracy theories and that President Biden has a word for this kind of talk: malarkey. Other Western powers echoed concerns that what Russia is actually doing here is trying to prepare the ground, lay the ground for its own biological or chemical weapons attacks in Ukraine, that this is a sort of a false flag preparation. That's really the concern from Western powers and their allies in the Security Council. Trying to prepare for its own sort of attack, and those powers have said that indeed it is Russia that has a biological weapons program.
Jessica, on that call by Russia at the UN Security Council, which, as she said, everyone else in the room said was Russia claiming the US helping Ukraine with biological chemical development. Will obviously do everything on that story if anything more emerges.
Нет, они там даже не рассказали, то ничего. Все нравится, ладно. Нет, никто не знает этого.
Putin's words on stage in Luzhniki Stadium, inevitably praising the invasion of Ukraine, where innocent civilians are being killed. Sinead Corsland has
Wir haben Zucker.
The letter Z, seen on tanks in Ukraine, created with the ribbon of St. George, colours of Russia's military symbol in a rally in Moscow. The celebrations marked 8 years since Russian troops annexed Crimea. Moscow's Luzhniki Stadium was packed for a special public appearance. The Russian President Putin justified his war against Ukraine.
People who lived and live in Donbass did not agree with the coup. They were subject to a blockade. They were subjected to systematic shelling and airstrikes. This is what is called genocide. The purpose, the motive, and aim of the special military operation in Donbass and Ukraine is to save people from this.
Russian state TV showed people celebrating throughout the country, like here in the Petropavlovsk-Kamchatsky region and in Vladivostok. Russia's annexation of Crimea in 2014 came 1 month after the beginning of the Ukrainian Revolution, culminating in the ousting of the country's then pro-Russian president Viktor Yanukovych, after he refused to sign a free trade agreement with the European Union, opting for closer ties with Russia. Russia continues to broaden its offensive on Ukraine.
Vladimir Putin rally in Moscow earlier. We, of course, are watching all developments on the situation in Ukraine by the minute, and we'll bring those to you as they happen. Short break coming up after that, the France 24 debate special. On the 60th anniversary of the Evian Accords, we're examining Algeria today. Have the problems from the War of Independence ever really been dealt with? Can Algeria's real potential be realised? We have 4 guests here with passionate views, detailed views, and things to say about this, which of course I think you'll find scintillating. Stay with us, that's coming up very shortly.
Das Salz ist gut.
Special event.
Every 5 years, France 24 brings you coverage of the French presidential election. The question this year is, will President Macron be re-elected for another term? Or will he be beaten by one of the candidates determined to defeat him? France 24 will cover the electoral campaign, meeting the French people, the candidates and their supporters until the vote in April. Follow the French presidential election every day.
Salz.
France 24 and France 24.
Die Frau liest das Rezept.
Welcome to the France 24 debate. 60 years ago today, the Accords were signed that ended the Algerian War of Independence. Tonight, we're going to discuss what this means today, where Algeria is going, and how the past is still casting a long shadow on Algeria.
Der Apfelsaft.
Colonial rule of France. Our guests for this special debate on Algeria are
Apfelsaft.
order of preference. They're all equally good. Todd Shepard, Professor of History at Johns Hopkins University. Todd, thank you very much for being with us. On the other side of our plateau, Mariam Belkaïd, Assistant Professor at Bowdoin University. Thanks for being with us, Mariam.
Thank you for having me.
André Debussy is a former French diplomat. Great to see you, sir.
Ich esse eine Kartoffel.
Someone I'm proud to describe as a colleague. Dorothy Kelly, journalist, researcher and specialist on Algerian affairs. Great to see you here in the studio. At last, before we let these people loose on Algeria, let's take a look at the historical context to really frame this debate.
Talks to end the 8-year war in Algeria came after months of secret negotiations. Terrorist attacks in Algeria.
Sie trinkt Apfelsaft.
In 1962,
Sie trinkt Apfelsaft.
to get on board. On March 7, 1962, representatives from the French government and the National Liberation Front came together in Evian with mainly 2 sticking points. The future of French nationals wishing to remain in Algeria, which was not resolved in the agreement, and who would control the Algerian Sahara. France managed to remain in charge for several years in that region, strategic for the oil industry and the development of nuclear weapons. The Evian agreements were signed on the 18th of March. A ceasefire took effect the next day.
Männer.
Have been adopted so that the people can control their own destiny.
But the fighting continued for several months, with attacks carried out by
Männer.
the made of mainly former French soldiers opposed to Algeria's independence by the Algerian National Liberation Front. No matter the situation on the ground, Algeria's journey to independence was in motion. The French and Algerians backed the principle in referendums. But on the day that independence was due to become European and pro-French Algerians were massacred in Oran. Facing new massacres, the Europeans fled Algeria. They were joined by some 10,000 Harkis, Algerians who fought alongside the French. The Harkis who remained in their home country were targeted repeatedly. Those repatriated, whether French or of Algerian descent, remain scarred by the killings until today.
Die Speisekarte.
On the report, they're giving us a framework as to what's happened. Let's bring in the guests for some initial comments about where Algeria is now. And may I start with you to get a sense of
Das Bier.
what you feel has been, I think it's fair to say, over the past 60 years, a very painful at times journey for Algeria.
Well, after the independence, I think there were many challenges, and actually the period right after the Accords was very challenging, and the transition also tells us a lot.
Ein Bier bitte.
To face And after the Accords, one of the chairmen of the provisional government of Algeria,
Der Wein.
Abdelrahman Fares, actually started the Accords where political
Die Zitrone.
of political pragmatism, because when he started to deal with what was happening in Algeria from
Der Junge liest die Speisekarte.
the independence was official, the challenges were humongous and huge, like really difficult to deal with.
Das Obst ist sauer.
This transition that actually was supposed to be the beginning of a new era for a democratic.
Die Zitrone ist sauer.
Was actually hindered the choices made after.
Sie haben Wein.
To actually not have a democratic system and to, in a way, put some obstacles for the building of a nation.
Du bist ein Vegetarier.
After, according to democratic principles.
So that is obviously a big issue, but the actual war brought up so many
Vegetarier.
in terms of the things that committed, the atrocities that committed, the problems that it raised, the lack of a truth and reconciliation process afterwards, which kind of
Ich bin Vegetarier. Ich bin Vegetarier.
Well, I would say that
Knau.
Algeria has made the
Knahu.
Algerian historians, the civil society, intellectuals, during these 60 years tried to build a
Istanbul.
different discourse,
Istanbul. Istanbul.
that is
Istanbul.
was built by the FLN and the system, and had a very, let's say, biased, maybe version, or maybe a mythologized version of what happened during the war.
Vegetarier.
Actors that were silenced during the war
Knau.
had to try to find
Knau.
a way to express
Knall. Knau.
their view
Knau.
what happened to them. You had also historians trying to give a new version of the facts. Historians like Mohammed Harbi, right from the beginning, tried to
Vegetarier.
in a logical and nuanced way. Cinema, literature who contributed in this building. But you're right, a lot of obstacles kept the Algerian society to build, let's say, a narrative that would help in having a peaceful understanding of what happened in the past, and also including a lot of actors. I think there was this idea that the FLN started the war in 1954, and then this this actor, in a way, hijacked, I would say, the narrative, but rightfully so. We have to admit that it's the political force and organization that led Algeria to the independence, but there was other sides that were left apart.
Can I agree with you? That's his stance.
I would speak rather as a French-born in Algeria rather than the diplomat, because this is where I was raised and I grew. It looks like from the past 20 years, successive governments on the French side have tried
sprach zu seinen Jüngern: Ihr wisset, dass nach 2 Tagen Ostern wird, und des Menschen Sohn wird überantwortet werden, was gekreuzt werde. Sich die hohen Priester und Schriftgelehrten und die Ältesten im Volk in den Palast des hohen Priesters, der da ist Kaiphas, und hielten Rat, wie sie Jesu mit Listen griffen und töteten. Sie sprachen aber: Ja, nicht auf das Fest, auf das Fest, auf das Fest. Das